this is where we're at with this car. This is obviously an engine conversion. This little 302 Windsor is not the original fitment for this motor vehicle, neither was the C4 that's behind it. What I've done here is we removed the cast iron manifolds that were being used on this car and used a cheap set of, essentially a block hugger, but with a rear outlet on them. I do this a fair bit in cars that have a fitment issue with headers, essentially, especially when they've got these cross-frame chassis down here. We've got to weave through them. These little shorty style block hugger type headers work really well. We've gone this way. This is made by Roadstar. They're available on eBay. This little header here these are like $300 for a pair. So when we're doing a custom header on a car with a low budget, this side's already done. We don't have to consider it. We come around the other side. I've cut it up. I've used what I want out of it, and we're gonna go with the rest. So I've cut our header down. Obviously our collector was over here where our steering box is, and that just wasn't going to work in this application. So with these two tubes removed and the collector removed now, I've got these pipes coming down really neatly, and this one nearly looks like it's made to work with this steering box. So that kind of looks factory. That's cool. I'm going to kick these two backwards. I'm going to put the collector back on. This one I think will go over the top and down, and I think this one at this stage is going to go underneath and across the top of the starter motor, running on the underside of this fellow here. That is yet to be determined. I'm about to pull this out and start putting the first piece on it, and we'll see how our trajectory is looking with our collector down in that corner. When doing this, I usually, once we've cut this old header up and we've got it back to this piece, there's another bit on the ground that didn't quite work out. Here's the old cross and collector section. Once I've got it all cut up, I can reuse some pieces, so this collector will go in quite nicely, and it'll also match the other side, so this looks like it was kind of made to be this way. This is one of the upper tubes that used to go in here. I'll use that for parts, and I've already cut up this particular tube over here, and I've just got on there and put some lines on this from underside the car, and that's going to be my first little test section, I suppose. So we'll start there. I'll see if the collector works with that. These two will go straight backwards, and these other ones are going to come in the top, something like that. We'll see how that plays out at this stage. So I'm going to tack this up. This is just a bunch of in and out, in and out, in and out. Get it in there, tack it, pull it back out, see if it's going to work, so on and so forth. I unfortunately think with the making of this particular header that it's not going to come out once it's all one piece without removing at least the starter motor. But that's okay. We'll work around that. When doing these, the resolution of one problem usually creates another. So I've just cut this where that collector was, and I've just tacked this fellow in here, and I'm pretty happy with the way he's sitting. But obviously we can't have these two welds here because I can't weld both sides of it, and we can't get an elbow into it. So what we do here is I've cut this for this particular profile, so I think I'll bring him in and we'll have that weld just up that bit higher where we can weld right round. So I might go ahead and cut that, lay him in there as well, that way I can double check my collector underneath. Hopefully we're moving forward. It's nearly lunchtime and I really need some progress. So this is how we're looking for our underside view. I've just mocked up those two first pipes. Just put my collector back on there to see my trajectory and make sure we're going in the right spot. On this side, because we've come down with using it the way it was, even though I'll cut this ring off soon, we'll probably come through this original hole in the chassis rail here and marry back into the original exhaust. This is a piece of the pipe that was here. It did go over this rail up here, but I think we'll probably do the same here, or we could come through and keep our symmetry with the other side. We'll see how that one plays out real soon. So yeah, that's a good starting point anyway. Once we get there, I can now start laying up some pipes and get some movement on this. Just like that, we're back out of the car. I have finalised this weld over here, so he's all locked in. I've welded the face of these two together over here. Now I can do a lot of this on the bench. I've taken all my measurements off the car. I know what I need to get around. I've got this little fellow over here, has to come basically straight up, and he's going to find his way to here. And this one's going to wrap around the base of this pipe and really hug it quite literally along the bottom side, and he's going to turn around and come into there in some kind of fashion like that. That will go back in the car for him, play with our mock up there. This top pipe, I can certainly mock that off the car. Alright, get this little guy here mocked up. Pretty happy with the way that's all sitting there now. I locked down our collector a little bit better. I'm actually going to weld it from the inside. Being such a short collector, I'll be able to get up the center to weld across, so I can actually sort of lock that fellow down now and make my job a little easier for the future. that's where we're at. I'm going to pull this now, go stick it back in the car, and we'll check our fit. This guy came along nicely. That's all tied in there now. To stitch along here is to retain it, and it's welded all the way around this piece. Profiled that back to suit the oval ports of this engine. I'm just playing around with this other one. I think I'm going to have to put it back in the car to really nut this out. Unfortunately, I've reached the stage where we're going to have to really start pulling some stuff apart. I think the steering is going to have to be somewhat dismantled, and probably even the starter motor come out. I believe this needs to come through here. This needs to be shortened way up, or about that length, I'm not entirely sure, and then loop back over into here, and that should miss the rest of the steering. But I think it's going to take a moment. We'll throw it back in the car for now, and just double check a few things before I go and make a terrible mistake and cut stuff that doesn't need to be cut. So here's our fitment check. Everything's going pretty well, actually. We've got a good bit of clearance there on the steering shaft. I'm happy with that. Can't quite see it there. We come over the top of that steering box with a whole heap of room, so we don't want to cook the steering box. And the next one we're moving on to is this fellow here. And he's going to have to go something along this. We go down, back under this one, and then we're going to find that collector down the back. So I'm just going to cut a few pieces here. I'm liking the look of that one so far. Just got to make it match the profile of the port. It's currently round, and then we'll start just. We go another 90 degrees, 45 to follow that line, and then find our way back to that collector. Well, this could be that moment of absolute regret. I've made the executive decision to weld in this tube down the bottom. I've fully welded these two pieces here, which you'll see when I get. Oh, it's hot. See when I get on the bench. I really want that position, and now I've got it. So I'm going to have to try and get this out as a unit, which had to happen sooner or later. So. Here we go. Well, I'm going to call this a win. I got the steering little rubbery piece out of the way, so that made it come out, thankfully. And this is a crucial piece I had to lock down. This fella here, I couldn't guesstimate this at all. It had to be what it had to be. So there's a bit of a profile of it. She's a funky bit of gear. Basically now I'm just going to trim this one back a touch. It has to run underneath this tube here. And then it's going to loop back up into this cylinder, and we're good, we're done. Weld out all the cross, make all this seal back up, get this one in the car. We can then go on to modifying the other side slightly so that I have a different fitting on here. Change it back to the original system, and we have extractors on this very cool little hot rod ute. Give you a quick look at that, actually. There she is. Pretty cool bit of kit. Oh, alright, it's now gotten dark. Shop's officially closed for the day, but I'm going to hang back tonight. We'll work on the lights and we'll get this done. It needs to be done. It's got to go tomorrow. It's meant to go today. But it was just fighting me. Well, not really fighting me. It's just a time-consuming little bugger. Well, I think that's the end of our mock-up. Done it. So I got this second cylinder in from the front, up and down and around the steering box, and then coming back up in here to my collector. I'm happy with this fella. I've just got that steering out at the moment, so that actually makes it go in and out. That was all I had to undo, so sometimes you just get lucky and have a win with that stuff. Now it's going to come back out for, well, probably the last time. I'm going to get it out, fully weld this thing, and it's time to fit it. And then I think I'm going to go home, and tomorrow is definitely another day, but we're not there yet. Well, that is going to do it for this guy tonight. I'm happy. It all came out really well. As you can see, it is one big piece of spaghetti tubing that misses everything that we want to miss, which is mainly just our steering box because it's kind of in the way, and that is what it is. So I'll come back in tomorrow. We need to put a, where is my finger? There it is. You put a flange on there, probably a V-band. Get this back in the car, reassemble the steering. We'll bolt down the other side for the last time, and then mate the exhaust, and hey, job done. See you tomorrow, guys. And that right there, people, is our finished product. Flange at the back. I stepped down to a 2-inch flange. Everything else is in and done. So, right after the break, we are going to fit this back to the car. Okay, so there's no ad break. This isn't actually a real TV show. It's just YouTube. And there she is, installed. Thank God for that. I'm not going to lie, that steering, that's all nuts and bolts, and slide it this way to remove this, then move it back the other way. It's like a frickin' Rubik's Cube. That's what it is. That was a nightmare. Anyways, that little guy's back together with all these little washers and little half shell pieces and all that jazz. That's cool. It's all in. You can see this plug lead here has got issues. It's touching this tube. In mock-up I knew that was going to be a problem, and I thought I'd be able to make a quick phone call and get an angled plug lead to go in there. But do you think anyone's got one of those in stock today? So I'm going to go for a drive soon and go on a mission and try and line it up with another lead basically. But that won't stop me from slow me down, so we're going to move on to the other side. It's all flanged down there. Get the other side done the same. It's obviously considerably easier because I don't have to dodge anything. All it is going to be... Where are we? I didn't even bring the light with me. I don't even need it. So I'm just going to change the end of it, and that side's going to work perfectly. So that is good news. We've checked all our plugs and leads go back in there nicely, which they do. And once that end's changed, we'll connect the exhaust back up to it, and we're good. Okay, we've kind of fast forwarded this section a little bit. This is the original exhaust system. We've just married this piece here into it on this side, coming up into there. So we did that nice and simply. Like I said, we went through the chassis rail here because this is the way they originally intended to run. This one was run over the top originally off those stock manifolds. And this one's going to come through here and reconnect to here. This guy down here, and then we're going to get all this stuff off of here, and we're going to get the car out of here and put it over there, and we're going to hear it running. So that's a little bit exciting. Here's one of those stock manifolds for what it's worth. Just quickly show you guys that. It's the original pipe that came up the top. And this is why we were doing this job. So that's just a stock manifold, very basic design. It did fit the car quite well with that steering box, but that is not the desired outcome. We're looking for way more flow than that little fellow has to offer, which we've done. Oh, and away she goes. Oh, what a cool little truck. Anyways, that's going to finish this video for us, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will, well, I'm going to go home. So I'll see you on the next one.